We'll just wait for a few people to roll in because there's usually sometimes it takes people time to refresh their LinkedIn or their YouTube live in order to do that. So we'll see here. What do you all got up there, Nick, right now? People are starting to roll in right now, which is good. I just got the email to join right now on LinkedIn. So there's usually a pretty good delay there. We'll wait and get it fired up. How's things in your neck of the woods, Matt?
Good with advertising.
Yeah. Oh, I got you. Yeah, nice. Cheers.
Cheers. Doing good. We got a little rain over here finally, but just from the storm rolling through. But it's kind of muggy. There's not been a lot of excuses to not build around here. It's just things are still going pretty strong.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll kind of start it off. So welcome to Materials Exchange Broadcasting. This is episode 14 of Lunch with Lumbermen with Matt Layman from Layman's Lumber Guide. Every week we break down kind of what's going on, follow Matt's guide, talk about what we're seeing happen in different parts of the market with different people in the supply chain. And we kind of kick it around and talk to our audience about what's going on also. Got great feedback from it. Matt and I were talking offline last week about how valuable the process is that Matt's doing with his clients and with Materials Exchange to save money and inform people and get a little bit more transparency out in the market. So kind of without any further ado, we'll ask anybody who's live on here if you could ask any questions that you want, and please post where you're from, who you are, and we can kind of start our little banter back and forth as you all start rolling in and logging in here, and we'll go from there. So we'll bring up our first chart from your Wednesday report, Matt, from the one you sent out last night that kind of shows the overall market trend. And as with anything, this market really seems to be people are buying, but it still continues to kind of fall a little bit, right? So what does this kind of chart tell you? What are you seeing out there in multifamily and other places? What's your feeling on things?
Well, I see a lot of people sitting on the fence that want to buy, and they're still kind of afraid to be first. And even the funny thing is, there's been a lot of people that have been buying. And one of the things that the market's missing right this minute is Random Lengths midweek report, which doesn't. So the overall industry isn't aware of what's going on with SPF, Western Canadian SPF, because of the fires and the rail situation and people getting to work. These Western SPF mills are sitting out with a 2-week order file, and the prices are up about $75. The market seems to be totally unaware of it. You can see that in the futures prices this morning. Futures is down limit, but there's just nothing to peg to. But in the other areas, the Pacific Northwest, those guys never really got real far behind on order file because they started out with a good order file, so they really haven't gotten in a lot of trouble. But they're following the price of SPF down, and SPF has just been kind of what we got a little while ago. He told me, he said, sales manager, I want to see blood in the streets. So whatever it takes to get an order filed, and that's what they've been doing. It looked like about $700 was the number for SPF, where they found a bottom. And talked to several people in Southern Pine that are buying multiple truckloads. They're trying to build inventory to have enough to last them at least through August. Some looking to buy inventory to hold them through November, or whatever their credit limits will allow them to do. But that seems to be a lot of the holdback right now. People are sitting on higher priced inventory, and they really want to see it turn before they. Unfortunately, by the time they get the inventory a little bit low, I think we're going to already be reversal and going the other way.
Yeah, it's so I've seen a lot of people coming in, users talking about multifamily jobs. One, they have people coming in. Interesting conversation last night with a few people. They have multifamily people trying to renegotiate some things that when I say just people trying to renegotiate some things they already had, but there's also people coming in with new business that they sat on, waited, and now are ready to do some things. But as with everything, I'm always amazed that there has been a lot of buying in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and the price continues to fall, right?
Yeah, but Yeah, week number 45, where it says it's DST. That's where daylight savings time starts.
Yes.
On the left.
Yeah.
Look what it took for us to get from week number 45 up to week number 20. You look at the work that was done to get it rallied up a little. It went sideways a little higher, sideways a little higher. And then finally we got about $1,200 and just rocketed up to $1,700 when everybody threw the towels. That's when the mills, that sharp spike up there right before the end was when the mills were, the builders were telling their suppliers, whatever you do, don't run out of lumber. Price is no object.
Right.
And that's what happened with that message. But we've taken out all of the work from last year, week number 45, where daylight saving time started last fall, all the way through the early spring. We've taken all of that back in 6 weeks.
It's amazing how long it takes to work up and then how quickly it comes back for whatever the dynamics are of that one. So inventory levels, let's talk a little bit about that. It seems like the mill level, obviously, some are okay. Some seem to be building or some see Southern Yellow Pine, they never really build an inventory level up there. They have some of it, but they have smaller locations, right? So they always just want to make sure it's going out the door all the time.
Yeah, there's also a lot of the new Canadian mills, new mills are coming online. Mills used to be like 100 million board feet were big mills. Now the new mills are 500 million board feet, I saw a projection the other day about what the projection production for 2021-22 is going to be. It only shows those mills operating at 50% of capacity, which is about 250 million board feet. So there's lots of capacity coming, and I think that's kind of what some of the Southern Pine buyers are looking at. They see the new capacity coming and think it should be available right away. It's just not.
Yeah, no doubt. So you and I had a little conversation before we came in. You have a feeling that some of this repair and remodel is coming back a little bit?
I think the DIY is coming back. And the reason is it's just a reprioritization of what's important to those DIY people that build all the decks and things last summer. I think they built them early because they didn't have any other option. They had to build them because they had nowhere to go. But this year they had vacation. But one of the things that we've seen out of this housing market so far, we haven't seen any price rejection because of price. And so we never really saw price rejection from the DIY market either. I think they just reversed replaced their DIY last year with a vacation this year. But I think that when they get back from vacation starting this week, you're going to probably see more play at the home centers, the big boxes, because the DIY market, I think it's coming back. Those guys have money to spend, and they're going to. If you think all the decks that they built forever are going to got built last year, that's a big misunderstanding. Because the millennials with plenty of money that still want to fix up their houses are still going to be doing backyard projects, and especially the lumber men, in quote men, that are going to be working in a 10 by 10 office for the next year are going to want some outside space as well. So I think there's going to be a late second half resurgence in the summer for DIY, and it's going to recover.
Okay, all right. That's it. That's an interesting way of looking at it. I could see that. So let's look at the different items. Let's bring up the second chart I wanted to look at is the Southern Yellow Pine, the Southern Yellow Pine chart. And what does that mean when I look at that blue line overshooting through there? What does that tell you a little bit about the market on the Southern Pine side?
Well, again, if you look at that from the beginning of the year, it's like $1,100 to get up to $1,500. It took us 20 weeks to get up $400, and it's taken us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks to get down $1,000. I think it's just an over. One thing we talked about earlier was the big boxes getting overstocked, and Southern Pine was going to be led down by treated, and that's happened because the treaters are not rebuying, and the big boxes are trying to liquidate their inventory. And I think we're going to get caught with we're looking at, the picture shows me an over liquidation. It's going to be an underbought condition, which is happening, I think, this week. And you can see from after this week, we go sideways for about a couple of weeks and then really start to kick in around week number 32. But I think now's the time to buy. Guys are telling me that mills are still a little accommodating on 2x4s, 2x6s. The wires are getting a little more scant just because there's not that much of it available. I mean, made anyway, purchased or produced. But this is one of those times where when you realize you come from $1,500 to almost $500, that you got to average it. We talked about this last week. The numbers are only good for you if you've got it on your yard and you own it. So
Right.
you got to buy some of this wood to average down, unless you just want to sit there and run completely out of your $1,500 lumber and then have nothing on the yard. That just doesn't make sense. It's not a good business strategy. So I think people are starting to pull the trigger and buy some of these numbers and making counters and realizing they're at a place that they can really make some significant change in their average cost.
I've noticed a lot of pine on the platform, especially in the wides, 8-inch, 10-inch. Not a lot of 12-inch. I've seen a lot of 8-inch, 10-inch, but especially 8-inch. And in our call yesterday, Matt Beamer was saying there's a lot of 8-inch showing up in every species everywhere. So that was interesting, right? Just the 8-inch.
8-inch has years where you can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
For 2 or 3 years. And this is one of those oversupplied 8-inch years. It just seems to be like the same with 6-inch, but it's been more of a 2x4 year than it has been 6-inch and wider. But with the exception of 2x6, 1 4 and 5/8 studs, they've been kind of tight all year. But
well, let's bring up the Canadian SPF. You talked about duties and fire. I mean, I guess I'm kind of on the other side. I think these, regardless of people being in mills or not, the market's pretty smart and knows where they know what's going on up there. The people that trade the futures are pretty tied into what's going on at those places, right? So that's a confusing thing to me when I see it selling off like that. Like everybody sent me over stuff on forest fires and all that, and I hope everybody's okay on that. That they happen every year, right? Which is not to this extent, but it's really crazy when this market is selling off when you've got that. So maybe that tells us more about supply and demand than it does anything, right?
I have a conspiracy. And I think the only reason futures is off this morning is because the guys who are trading futures aren't anticipating a higher print tomorrow from Random Lengths. And okay. I think that when that word gets out early afternoon, that the print's going to be higher, I think we could see futures trade off a limit down.
So Buddy from Miller Lumber is asking, any advice and insight on working off high-priced inventory? ? Sell at market cost, move quickly, blend pricing based on more of an average cost.
Well, the price that you can get for your lumber is going to be based on what everybody else around you is selling it for.
Right.
So everybody owns a little bit of high-priced lumber. Everybody's had the opportunity to buy some lower-priced lumber. Everybody's bringing it in at a light pace. So nobody's got $700 or $1,000 for an average cost of your lumber right now. There's still higher price, and I think you got to sell based off your average inventory. I would not sell at a loss because there's nobody's doing that. There's just no reason to dump it when we know there's bigger demand coming in the second half of the year or a resurgence. These prices do not represent what's going on in the housing market by any stretch. It just shows us how overbought the market got.
Good point, Matt. Let's bring up this chart is fascinating to me. The OSB chart, that's this one. That is it kind of is a little more flattened out. There we go. So look at crazy. So over the last 2 weeks, I've seen more end users, retail yards coming to me. Another guy yesterday came and said, I have trucks I want to move off in Florida, 10 trucks. Can you get me set up as a seller? And the market's just stuck where everybody's trying to sell it at, like, it seems to be on the platform at around like a 7/16 equivalent, somewhere around $1,300, $1,000 everywhere. So what I see on that is when you have a few producers and most of this is on contract, it's hard to actually get a spot market price to report to actually get something to reflect it. Does that make any sense? So I see people moving stuff, wanting to sell stuff, but it's hard for them to get a number what to move it at.
Well, here's look at the sales production ratio in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which has 83% for the 3-week average.
We'll bring it up there. Yeah, there you go.
90.
Yeah,
right there at 80%. That the mills have not sold production for the last or any excess production for the last 2 to 3 weeks because they've got 80. They're going to sell 80% no matter what happens. They got 80% back. If they don't have anything better than 80%, they're not selling any extra production at all. So for the past several weeks, mills have not been. They've been building inventory. They've been not selling their inventory. So and the reason my prices are slanting down a little bit, it's just coming back to where random was or the index was for what the market really was. That's just a premium coming out of the market from getting back to a print kind of basis. The two things tell me that the premium being gone, they're just slowly dragging out. Typically, what the market does at the top on OSB because of contracts, it lingers at the top, and then all of a sudden it just slaps down $200 or $300 in a hurry.
Yeah, because everybody, these, you look at some mills, some of them sell 80% box, right? Probably, or some of them sell lots of box and a lot less is on contract. So when they have extra, they go to their people that they say, hey, I need to move 200 trucks. What can you pull together for me, right? And I think we're at that point right now where they're probably out there looking to do some of that stuff.
Yeah, and you and I've done this. We had some offers that were a couple $100 under the index, and they're probably a couple $100, and the sellers don't want to sell it, and it's probably because they own it at higher prices. But
yeah,
I would be surprised to see OSB down a couple $100 over the next couple of weeks, and maybe probably more than $100.
I'm amazed it's held in there and the resiliency of it. And, I make trips to all the different big box stores, the regional ones on weekends, just to look at the pricing. And I'll be darned if they're not the exact same price. I went to 2 or 3 different stores, different brands, different ownership, $46.05 in the Chicagoland market, like 2 different stores, right? Now, right. Some of them had discounts when you bought more, but that number is just kind of staying there. That's why I think something that you're right. It could tip and trade off a little bit. Let's go over to your framing package index, because a lot of builders watch this and a lot of framers watch this. And any highlights on what happened to the framing package index over the last week at all?
Well, it's continuing to fall, but and it's continuing to be supported by OSB, because a third of that number is OSB and a third is SPF West.
Good point. Yeah.
Pine East. So Southern Pine has really come off hard. Spruce is kind of trying to make a stand, make a bottom, but and OSB is basically kind of flat. But the biggest down drag on it has been Southern Pine, and so we're going to see. If you go to your lumber yard, and you can look for what a price is going to be doing. The price of your OSB is not going to be getting lower. The price of your spruce isn't going to be getting lower, just because they haven't had the time to get that lower price inventory in. But Southern Pine should start to show some breaks, I think, in probably some of your treated prices.
Well, so we had a lot of these questions yesterday, and I think you and I touched on it last week because we had a question from an audience member. The question was, I'm going around to all my sellers that I normally buy lumber from, but I'm hearing the wholesale, the mill levels are off 40-50%, but at my yard or whatever, the prices aren't off, or they're only off 5 or 10%. When am I going to see relief where I buy lumber, right? That's what some of the users were asking. What do you think with that?
Well, the first thought that just came to mind right now is if you had a refrigerator that was full of meat, and you paid $4.85 a pound or $40 a pound for a steak, and all of a sudden you could go to the store, has it on sale for $20 a pound, and you go and you put some of that in your freezer. Your average price of your meat in your freezer isn't going to be $20. It's going to be all those 40s plus a little bit of 20. So you're just going to see just a very modest decline in your average price of what the meat in your freezer is. It's the same way with lumbers on a much larger scale. These guys aren't selling. These guys are sitting with 6 and 8 week inventory, and they sell 1 week's worth of wood. They can only buy a week's worth of supply. They're not going to rebuild inventory at a bigger rate when the prices are falling. So they're trying to rebuild inventory on a smaller scale at a lower price, but they don't want to buy a whole bunch of it when they think it's going to be cheaper again next week. So
yeah,
we're really only going to see the price declines, the significant price declines in the stores once the prices start to move higher again. and you've got the cycle of when the lower prices are dominating the inventory. And most people that I know that are they're selling right now based on their average inventory cost. So the answer to the question is, when are you going to see it? It's going to be at least 30 days before you see it on the retail floor.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, another thing too, it kind of is a little bit tells you how good the market is, right? Because if you don't have to lower your prices, you don't lower them, right? If you got enough demand, because think about it, people that buy at yards, they're engineered, they're getting cabinets, windows, a lot of times, everything else. So, and they need this stuff delivered to the job site. So if and a lot of people still have so much business, if they don't have to lower something, they're not going to lower it, right?
Well, just think about the only thing that's in the market compared to last year right now is DIY. I mean, the builders are still doing the same thing that we're doing before. They're taking the same amount. There's no change in what the builders' expectations were. They're at the completion phase of their building process, so they're going to be taking less lumber. But that's not a surprise. That was the next expectation. That's why people were looking at liquidate inventory from May through August.
Sure.
But I think the surprise, I call it the overlooked obvious, the surprise in this market is going to be the return of the DIY market without any notice. Once they get back to vacation, they realize, well, shoot, it's the middle of July, and I've got 6 more weeks before something's going to happen. Kids back in school, and most people are going to be, and I'm going to say most people kind of in quotes, are going to be not going back to a job. They're going to be staying at home and realize that, I didn't build a deck last year because the price of lumber got so high, but maybe I'll take a look at it again, and they're going to see that there's more availability. The shelves are stocked full, and I think people that the reason we didn't do any more than we did last year wasn't price, it was just the availability, because there was no shortage of demand for our inquiry for decking and 4x4s and 2x4s and 2x6s for handrails and fences and all that kind of stuff. That inquiry never went away. We just staged out of it through the seasons, but it's coming back around, and I think that's where the surprise is going to be. It's going to catch the market off guard.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one thing we always talk about too is, we still need labor to come back, and we need more people to build houses. Other items, you think about it now, lumber has kind of come back in price, but somebody posted something today about all the other items that go into houses that are up in price, right? Windows and doors, shingles, plumbing supplies, everything else is up in price too. And then you look at everybody. I'm thinking a month ago back, people were asking us about the engineered wood. Is that loosening up? Have you heard anything there? Because I don't follow that.
That's still a big concern for the builders, is not knowing what that's going to be like. The good thing of that is they need significantly less in the second half of the year than they did in the first half of the year. So I think it's going to give a chance to get caught up.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. Logistics. I think it's still tight, but I have noticed internally and some other things. Some lanes are loosening up a little bit, which is good. Things are a little bit more fluid, moving back and forth.
Can you scroll down on my shipping page where the trucking stuff information is?
Yeah, what is that on? What page is that one on, Matt?
That's probably about 12. No, that it is right there. Go back one. That's it right there, flatbed.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Tell us about that one.
Scroll up a little bit. Look at that chart. The green line is this is called the load to truck ratio, which is put out by a company called DAT.com.
Yeah.
And they monitor the like in truck stops, the loads that are being posted and the carriers that are responding to those loads.
Yeah, for sure.
Today, when there's a large volume of loads to be posted, they kind of get posted more than once or twice because the carrier, the shipper wants to make sure they're near the top of the list. But if you can look and see back from week number 20 about.
Yeah, yes.
The load to truck ratio fell from a high of 116. Scroll up a little bit, you can see it's down to like in the 60s right now. And it's down about 40%. But look how lumber's tracked just right along with that. So my thought is lumber does have a big influence on the amount of flatbeds that are available. And with less lumber being shipped, then there's more trucks available. So
that's a cool chart. That's a cool chart, Matt.
The trucking's loosening up since
Yeah, no, and we've noticed that on a few loads that were just really hard. All of a sudden they're loosening up, but that's a pretty cool chart. I didn't even realize you had that one on there. I like that a lot. That's that's some pretty good insight. It almost shows, you can almost see when that thing, did that roll over? That rolled over a little bit after pricing rolled over, obviously. So it lagged.
Funny, it peaked right where week number 20 was. It was right.
Okay. That's cool. I like that chart. Anything else that you wanted to go over at all today?
I think more than anything else, I think the expectation for lower prices to continue to happen is really overblown, and I can understand not wanting to buy because you think it's going to be $200 cheaper next week. But I mentioned last week all it's going to take is it's going to start with SPF, one of the large 3 SPF mills saying I'm off the market. And right now they're not off the market yet, but they're certainly getting out 2 weeks. I think another little flurry of activity that can push those prices up over $800 is going to be a kind of a landmark spot for them to be able to push prices back higher again. I'm not sure we'll go back to $1,500 or $1,700, but I think a $300 or $400 pop is certainly in the cards.
Well, you think about it. I mean, just CME related, we moved almost $140 from July 1st until 6 days later. And historically, that's as much as we move in a whole year, right?
Yeah.
We did it in like 6 days. So there's no, the amount of volatility never surprises me where things can go. Well,
if you go back to the framing package index, specific there.
Yeah.
The price from May to June fell from 72,000 on the bottom, the very bottom, so you can see the composite one. But it's like the first line there, the area 1 fell from May to June by what, $26,000?
Yeah.
That's pretty significant, almost 25% decline. So what that tells the builders is that your suppliers are getting a lower priced inventory, so you can expect some lower lumber lumber locks to be available next month.
Yeah. Rudy was asking, Lockhart was asking, I understand SPF being near a bottom, but how about Western GDF that has not corrected anywhere near SPF? I don't know enough about GDF. I know somebody was talking about it yesterday, saying that.
Scroll down to that page.
Do you got the GDF one, Matt?
Yes. It comes right after the Western dry fir. Go up, up a page. Where are you? Yeah, you got to go up. One more, it's right above this one.
There it is.
All right, scroll just a little bit higher. A little bit higher so you can see the prices. Because see what the spread for coastal dry fir is? 90, 90, 50, 150, 75. Green Doug fir is now at a premium to dry Doug fir. Does that make sense?
It doesn't make sense, but I guess why is it at a premium?
It shouldn't be. So the observation that green Doug fir has not come off as much as everything else is a good observation, because it should be at a discount of about $50 to dry, and it's now almost $100 premium. But we saw it adjusted. Green Doug fir fell last week almost $250. So it made a real leap to try to catch up, but dry also was trying to catch up with spruce. So it was down a couple $100 as well. But the market for green Doug fir is so small. It's basically a Southern California over to Phoenix kind of market, and it's got a very small market base. So it doesn't take much to quiet it down or heat it up. But from what I can hear, the builders in Southern California and the Phoenix area over that way are cranking. They're just wide open. They got a lot of stuff happening between now and the end of the year. So I would imagine that there's a good possibility that the green won't go down a whole lot further, but dry will turn and catch it going up.
So I guess if you were a green buyer right now, then you could switch between green and dry in that California market, you'd be wanting to take the dry and not the green.
Yeah, because the dry is more negotiable too, because there's more of it available. There's not a lot of excess supply in green. Green's just going in sympathy with everything else, but its premium to dry just shows you that it's not really out there in abundance.
No, that makes absolute sense. I hope that answered your question, Rudy. I think there's still a little section up in the Northeast that uses green also.
Well, they're kind of fickle about it. They don't like that. They get a lot of waste when the summer gets up there. That stuff starts to mold, and I've heard numbers as high as 20 to 25% worth of downfall over if you buy it for speculatively for the summer. And when it gets humid and hot, that lumber just goes to waste. So it's been kind of a trend over the last several years for the Northeast to get more on a dry scale. But when the prices get to be abnormally weird, where green gets to be $150 cheaper than dry, they'll switch over. But it's not a permanent thing. There was
an episode of The Sopranos like 10 or 15 years ago where they talked about Doug fir in the houses when they were building one of the houses. They talked about green and dry Doug fir, I think, in a Sopranos episode in the Northeast, New Jersey. Yeah. Well, cool. We're up against our half an hour. So if you ever want to get a hold of Matt, it's Layman's Lumber Guide. It's Matt at laymansguide.info. We'll put it down there. Matt does a great job. He is a lot of people on here. Matt has been in the industry in all aspects of it. And if you ever need him as anything as far as consulting or talking about projects you have, Matt, I won't speak for you. Is that something that you look at doing, right?
Absolutely. Anything lumber. My wife's sick of hearing about it, but she's part of the way it goes.
Well, and if you want to get a hold of us, you can go to materialsexchange.com or just mxlumber.com, and we'll get you on and looking at the buy side and the sell side and transacting in under 24 hours. So again, thanks for showing up to episode 14. Matt and I will be here next week, and I'm certainly will have, with the volatility in the market, we'll have a different conversation.
Thank you guys for coming.